Okay, thank you everyone. I'm so glad to be here today. I wish to be in person, but unfortunately, but anyway, it will be great to share with you some of the work I'm being involved in currently. So I'm Sondess Missaoui, and I'm here today to represent to you some of the work on developing voice technology for children. More specifically on how to bring the technical side of AI with the ethical consideration needed to develop a safe and responsible voice assistant technology for children. So,
Sondess, il faut dire que tu es dans l'université York.
Yeah, sure. So this work is a part of the project I'm involved in within the University of York. So it's a part of digital creativity labs where I'm a member, and I'm running certain research around artificial intelligence in gaming and gamification and conversational AI and other disciplines. So I will take you today through an exciting project, which is named AI Funnel. And this project I have been involved in, and some of the finding as we go along. So I did this research, as I mentioned, as a member of GC Lab, and that's based on York University. So what you see here, it's a range on the right, I think, of the screen. It's a range of researchers from different backgrounds working together in different projects. So you can see there some researcher in education and philosophy, psychology, humanity, social science also, and working side by side with computer science like myself and neighboring disciplines. And actually, what we're aiming by this multidisciplinary team is to bring together a different perspective of how we use AI to really impact the real world. So that's our major aim there, and help impacting as well the industry. So we have people, as I mentioned, interested in game and storytelling, and the project I'm going to share with you today is more on the side of storytelling and filmmaker. So what I'm gonna present you exactly now is about the AI Funnel, and which is a collaboration between Digital Creativity Lab and the BAFTA award-winning Joe Polai. So BAFTA is a short name for British Academy Award Film, and our partner, who are industrial partners, have reassured a kind of agreement with BBC to work with them on their TV show. So this partnership with BBC on the usage of the content from a very famous show here called Jamie Johnson, which addressed teenagers in particular and children. As part of this agreement, we were able to secure audio files and script to release in our research and development. So to give you a bit of context and to let you imagine what is this project about, I want you to imagine yourself getting to the end of your favorite TV show, whatever this TV show is, with a whirlwind of emotion that's buzzing around your brain, laugh, argument, tears, and actually you want to blur it all out. What's going to happen to your favorite character in the next week episode? One of the questions that could come to your mind. As the credits roll, your smart speaker voice assistant will trip up, and it's your favorite character who would engage with you in a conversation. And let's imagine it will say, "Hi, that episode was mad, wasn't it? My head is muddled, and I would love to know your take on it." So you will enter into a meta story chat with your favorite characters as you talk about what's going on in the story, your thoughts on it, and some reflection about how it relates to your life. you get to feel that the character are your friends, and you can take a guess on what you think is going to happen next. So by extending the audience engagement, and that's what this project aiming for, we want to give children, and this is our particular users, the opportunity to safely, and here you will hear again and again the word safely, safely cultivate a bond with the characters, helping them develop a social competence and the ability to understand emotion, cooperation, and also learn how to negotiate conflicts. So that was the aim of our partner, Joe Polloy. So as you can imagine, this project would evolve more than the simple usage of artificial intelligence. There are multiple other perspectives that we had to think about along the way. So what is the technology that we're going to use? Exactly, it's conversational AI. And the conversational, I'm not sure if you can see my screen. Check this, pardon. Okay, so, and as I said, the conversational AI actually is the technology that enables the users to communicate with a wide range of application and natural language via voice, text, or even video in certain cases. More specifically, the software are artificial intelligence agents that engage in a natural conversation interaction with the humans. This is a very rapidly growing field. It's attracting many researchers from different disciplines, including NLP, information retrieval, machine learning, and recently we have seen in the SIGA year a new whole track that addresses this type of research. So traditionally, we refer to conversational AI as the dialogue systems, and the difference between it and AI is that in a dialogue system, we use purely rule-based rather than AI-based technology. So another a quick hint about how this technology is important in everyday life, in people's everyday lives. Some of the recent, not really recent, is dated 2019, statistics have mentioned that 1 in 4 children here in United Kingdom are using this voice technology, and they have come across Alexa or Google Home. So it's becoming really embedded in their everyday life. This rise in the use as well have lead to an increased attention around the application of using conversational AI. So recent advances have addressed the application with respect to privacy, safety, security, and access, as well as inclusion. And by inclusion, we've been to be inclusive not only to adults, but only to children, different age, different ethnic groups, etc. We will come across some of the findings around inclusivity later on in this presentation. But however, there is a need to connect and embed the ethical side with the technological aspect and the design of a conversational AI for anyone, but in particular for children. In our interdisciplinary team, we have provided a roadmap from which designer can consider the social context within the technology development as a sustained and supported by argumentation from within the literature. In this picture, it resumes what is the existing trend in conversational AI and what we are aiming for. So from autonomous technology to assistant and augmented technology, different approaches for conversational AI have been developed. And more you go in toward the automation, more the ethical concerns rise. and increases. And our aim is to build this ethical and human-centered chatbot for our conversational AI that is balances between the innovation and the ethical consideration. So we don't want to let one of the path or the trends goes beyond the other. So what I'm going to do first is to introduce you to this technology more closely and to give you a bit of understanding about what is existing in this field. So to make it was necessary for us as a team to first review the different architecture and approaches existing. Those one developed by Amazon mainly and Google Home because they have made great advances in this field. But as different methods exist, they pose distinct ethical challenge and the form of interaction the system aims to support. For example, answering a specific question about TV show is different from booking a flight. And those different tasks would require different architecture, but as well different consideration. Our review addresses this challenge with respect to machine learning and natural language processing in particular. And we were mostly focusing in specific component of the conversational AI agent that I will present to you later on here. Yeah, I'll present to you in this slide actually. So as per this picture, you can see that a conversational AI will require the coordination and integration of several discrete systems performing what we call pseudo-simultaneous tasks. So a typical task-oriented chatbot is composed of 4 modules. And those 4 modules themselves are composed by sub-modules. So there are the natural language understanding module for identifying the user intent and extraction the associated information. Then there is the dialogue management or state tracker for tracking the dialogue state that capture all essential information in the conversation so far. Third one is the natural language generation. And the 4th one is the module for converting the agent action into a natural response. And that in itself is divided into 2 parts, which are the TTS, text-to-speech, and the ASR, automatic speech recognition. So our work is more focusing on the dialogue management part and the natural language understanding, because as far as we know, those are the components that really provide and retrieve the actual answer that will go to the end users. About TTS and SCR, there are a very enormous amount of research done by Amazon team, and they have already a team called TTS team for speech recognition, and that's mainly would require a lot of technological power in terms of the voice assistant and the term of hardware side of the thing. So what I want to discuss more here is that the ASR faces several sources of acoustic variability, which is caused by complicated interaction with the speakers, and that could change with the dialect, could change with the level of stress, could change with many others features. And we aim it because we will not be working on TTS or SCR in particular, but we aim it to see how this component will affect the user experience as well. And we try to identify the main feature that make them very sensible to the end users. So far, our research aimed to consider all the ethical challenge for all those components, but with main focus on the dialogue management part. In this part of the talk, what I'm aiming to present is one of the studies we have made in this project. And this study is aimed to compare the existing work. And to see how the CI technology have moved from traditional natural language processing approaches toward more deep learning and neural networks-based approaches, DNN for short. So we have figured out two main types of domain, which are classified into as task-oriented or frame-based. They are very domain-specific approaches, and the other one, they are more open domain, so they're able to speak on a range of topics as determined by the users itself rather than being determined by certain rules. So there has been a trend towards developing a fully data-driven system by unifying the model that I discussed in the previous features, using a deep neural network that maps the user input to the agent output directly. Those advances are based on mainly the advances in deep learning and the pre-trained language model like BERT and the availability of large conversational databases that have been made open to main dialect system capable of generating content on a wide range of topics more available. So CI application for children may encapsulate both the task-oriented approaches and the open-ended dialogue to support functional and educational or even an entertainment-related interaction. At the end, the design decisions are typically informed by the type of the interaction the system seeks to support, but also by the capabilities and the challenges and the pose. So what we done, we had gone through a lot of user-centered study, so some workshop with a professional, with people who are like experts in the fields, with people with the educational background to try to kind of figure out which one are more suitable for the use of children, especially that we know that the open-ended dialogue will include a lot of data that we don't have a full control in it. And if you remember back in 2016 or 18, I'm sorry if I'm saying the wrong date, the Twitter chatbot that was fully based on deep learning model and turned at the end to become sexist and racist. So we don't want to use certain technology that could lead to these problems, and we end up with a lot of ethical issues that we are at the end dealing with children that are between 9 and 12 years old. So to give you as well another argument about why it's very important to choose between using the traditional NLP or transition to deep learning, we have figured out that as this picture shown by Gio and all, the symbolic to the natural shifts is also reshaping the AI landscape by opening up new tasks and user experience that were not possible with older techniques. One reason for this is that the neural approach provides consistent representation for many modularities, capturing the linguistic and non-linguistic feature in the same modeling framework. So perhaps you have come across one of the viral TikTok videos where someone would require from their assistant, voice assistant like Alexa, to add to their to-do list to go to the gym. And it turned out that Alexa added gym to the shopping list, which is completely nonsense. However, this video is really reflecting what's happening in the reality with this technology. This technology are learning from our interaction with them, and they are learning from our habits, but as well as embedding a lot of other people's habits that's coming from the data. So any bias in the data would be reflected on the output of this technology. And this is a huge issue when it comes to work with the children, that we needed to figure out the best approach to overcome it. And as a community of researchers, or many of you probably would be working on this field, knows how the bias could affect the end results of many, many applications. So that's lead us to make, as I said, design decision that should, and the question was how to make the balance between a domain-specific and open dialogue, and while considering all those issues that I mentioned above. There are also works on hybrid methods that combine the strength of both neural and symbolic approach that have been proposed by Mo and Owl since 2016. So in this project, we aim to use certain hybrid models. Most of the popular personal assistants in nowadays market, like Amazon Alexa or Apple Siri, or even Cortana from Microsoft, are task-oriented bots, something that can only handle relatively simple tasks, such as reporting weather and requesting songs. So when we wanted to adapt their models, we end up with a chatbots that very limited and that didn't fit into the scenario we described in the beginning of engaging with a character and a storytelling format that would look like a real life conversation. So in fact, building a dialogue agent to fulfill complex tasks as remains one of the most fundamental challenges. And AI in general, and poses many ethical as well challenges. So in our work, we proposed what we were very particularly saying a safe and responsible chatbot that combine both, but mostly tends most to be a domain-specific chatbot. So here, what we want to share with you is some of the findings. So once we have developed a prototype that embed this hybrid model, we added to it, on top of it, some voice cloning technology that enable us to have a prototype that some children would be able to use. So before the lockdown, we had a plan to run workshop with the children from schools and to try with them this prototype and see how they reflect, how they interact with it. However, with all the pandemic situation and with all the struggles that we had to run certain workshop, we went to try with some of our colleagues' children. So the study was very limited. However, we came across a very interesting findings. And we mostly find that there is a growing interest in bridging the gap between ethics and AI practice and pressing need for good governance. So most of the participants in our study, especially their parents who give the consent to their children to use certain technology, were very, very, very aware about how this technology could affect not only how the children engage, but their self-esteem. So if you imagine children who interact with this technology and cannot be understood because of its accent or because of the way he speaks or she speaks, that, as you can imagine, would impact their growth even. So UNICEF has already been in I wanted to say as a conclusion here that we after developing this prototype, we needed to highlight how it's important to bridge any gap between only being a developer, only being AI researcher, and between bringing this research and this technology into real world. And that's how it can only happen through the ethical consideration that I will mention now. So one of the things that is conversational AI, as I mentioned, can affect cognitive and linguistic development of the children. So UNICEF has already been in the forefront of safeguarding for young people and their rights. And they stated that the greatest impact of AI on children will be on their cognitive and linguistic development first, but as well, and their recommendation about that is to closely examine privacy, safety, security, and this can only happen by providing identity protection and detecting harmful content. So focusing on location detection and biological, psychological safety as well. So that's mean the data that we're going to use needed to be anonymized, and any data this conversational chatbot will save during the conversation as well needs to be anonymized, and we need to tell the parent where it's going to be stored. So another thing, we tried to study the implication of CI on light of this one. So the moral care and social behavior, and that includes civility, relationship, the child-agent interactions. We as well studied the ethical and regulatory and legal aspect of voice agent for children. And the last aspect that we studied through our prototype is the inclusivity, and that includes gender, race, and bias. Finally, we tried to draw together like the finding discussed toward the set of recommendations. So for the responsible development for this chatbot. And this set of recommendation would help not only Joe Polloy as the industrial partner, but any industry who would like to use this technology for creative industry, but for any other purpose that could as well be health-related purposes. So we identified several areas with required deeper consideration and reflection when developing such a technology. And informed by the literature, we proposed a series of ethical consideration by theme, as you can see in these pictures. And the first one is those four are aiming to respond to certain questions. And this question are, what data will be collected and used? And this is more toward the theme of regulatory and legal aspect. And this is beyond the capacity of a researcher or a industry partner. This is about the governance and government, and government needs to look at this regulatory and legal aspect. The second question is, how will the collected data be used? The third question is, how far in relation to which regulation has the AI safeguard children's safety and privacy? And this is more about moral care and social behavior. How do we develop the child-friendly and engaging CI, and how should the AI behave? Again, in the same thematic. How do we reflect on mitigate against bias? How do we ensure as a developer responsible innovation and use participatory design techniques? And this is to have child development of their cognitive and linguistic and capability and skills. And the last question is, what technology and approach should be adapted to provide moral care and direct pro-social behavior? And this is more about inclusivity. So to conclude, the research we have done, and one of the things that we are really proud of is that we didn't develop a technology that aimed to use the most innovative approach and model and showcase it only, but we aim to balance this innovation with the ethical concerns of the society and considering the future generation. So so far we mapped responsible CI for children, and we proposed an understanding of the domain and the problem that the agent aimed to solve. We involved kids in the interaction with this technology to learn about the system behavior and to see their reflection and reaction to it. What we have done as well is we applied AI for the good of society. So what we are mostly aiming to promote is to develop a fair AI, so fairness in AI, transparency, and accountability and ethics in AI. All together have been brought in this project, and all together lead to a work that aimed to not only entertain the children, but help them develop their cognitive and linguistic capability as well. So at the end, I'm happy to answer any of your questions. And thank you for your listening.
Merci beaucoup, Sondess. Très bien. Donc, une question? Oui, allez-y, avec le micro.
Hi. I'm Fatma Tnani. I'm a reporter. I want to know for AI and children, how do we balance the risks and the opportunities?
Thank you for your question. It's really the core aim of that project, how to balance it. It's a tough question actually to answer. However, we believed through the process, we provided a set of guidelines and recommendation on how to do that in practice. However, we believe the key there is to work in a multidisciplinary team where you involve your end users. Although the end users in this case are minor, they are children, but involving their stakeholders, and by stakeholders I mean their parents, involving their teacher, involving everyone that give care to them, and the discussion of what is your concern about the technology, what's your concern about the data. But mainly and foremost, we have to be very specific about what type of data we use and about the privacy and identity of our children, nonetheless about their linguistic capabilities. So one of the cases where one of the child was trying to turn Alexa on, and he wasn't capable of doing that because of his own the accent or his linguistic capability in general, that caused this child a kind of trauma, not a big trauma, but devastation, let's be more clear about this technology, and turn them off from using it. And in the context of this project, more specifically where we're aiming for an entertainment technology, we need to engage them. So we need as well to be specific about this level of voice and the interaction with the voice. So yeah, at the end is all about the data we are using to develop the technology, if I can resume it this way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Merci, Sondess. Une autre question? Coucou, Sondess.
Hi. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. Je pense qu'il n'y a pas d'autres questions. Ben, on vous remercie, Sondess. Merci beaucoup pour cette belle présentation, très intéressante, enrichissante. Et nous allons partager cette présentation auprès de nos participants, nos chers invités. Et on vous remercie davantage. Merci beaucoup, au plaisir de te revoir bientôt, Sondess.
Merci à vous pour l'opportunité.